Yeah, that's consistency right there.
Consistency is
Yeah.
king. Talk about it with Franjez. Today's special guest is a recording artist from Queens, New York. Today's guest is Ben Bacardi.
What's up, everyone? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming all the way from Queens.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. How you doing today?
I'm good. It's a hot day out, for sure. One of the hottest days of the year, but
Yeah,
it's nice in here. Happy to be here.
it really is. It really is
Mhm.
hot outside. So let's jump straight into it. Where were you born?
I was born in Fresh Meadows, Queens, which is part of Flushing, Queens. You have like Pominock, you have Fresh Meadows, you have Flushing down Main Street area, and Fresh Meadows is more like kind of like on the border of maybe say Bayside and Whitestone, kind of like, or and Hollis as well, kind of
Nice.
like on the border of those places.
All right. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. What kind of kid were you? What were you into?
Just a normal childhood. I have two older sisters. Grew up with two parents. In Fresh Meadows, we lived in a multicultural neighborhood. There's just a more different time in the '80s. I'd say when you could play outside till 10, 11 o'clock at night, and all different types of sports. Just not too many worries. You didn't know if you were rich. You didn't know if you were poor. Just just enjoyed. It was a pretty good childhood, I'd say, for sure.
But what is it? Is it like middle class?
Yeah. So fresh. If you have a house in Fresh Meadows, you're upper middle class. And now, if you have a house, you're probably above upper middle class because real estate has gotten so expensive in those areas. But in the Fresh Meadows area where we lived in the development where you had duplexes, you had 3-story buildings, 13-story buildings, and it was rent. It wasn't, we didn't own
Okay.
at that time until my parents, they moved out from there to Bayside, which is the town over, when I was about 15, and they bought a house there. For the first 15 years, I shared a room with my two older sisters. So, and they're 7 years older than me. But that's all I knew, so
Yeah, of course.
it wasn't like it wasn't different, but I was definitely happy to get my own room and have my own space when my parents moved at that time.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
learned a lot about females, I bet.
Yeah, for sure. hmm Yeah.
Oh man. Has that helped in your dating life?
You get to know the personalities of females and the emotional side of them by having older sisters, and what kind of men they like and what kind of men they don't like. You could definitely get an advantage on tips of in that. I don't know for sure if it helped me in my dating life, because at the end of the day, you kind of like decide who you want to date yourself not based off of your sisters, but they had some good influence on me in that state.
Good.
Yeah.
So you said sports. What sports are being played in this neighborhood?
Handball, basketball, softball, baseball, punchball, football. Behind every apartment or building was a huge field, right? So you had manhunt, water sports, basketball courts,
Nice.
football, all different types of sports we played all the time. There were a schoolyard over there, 2 blocks down, a schoolyard 2 blocks this way. So anywhere you went, there was always some kind of sports going on.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about the house. What food is being cooked in the house and what music is being played in the house?
So my parents, my mom, she pretty much cooked, I'd say, traditional, maybe American food, a lot of chicken. In the summer, barbecues. My dad would cook barbecues, roast beef, cold cuts for lunches. With bread and eggs in the morning, sometimes on the weekend, but mostly just cereal. Um, nothing too spicy or out of the ordinary. I married a Spanish woman, and she has a lot more flavor in her food and more diversity, as opposed to when I grew up. It was a lot more bland, less salt,
Damn.
which it could be less flavorful, but it also can keep you from getting high blood pressure and a lot of cholesterol too, which was good for growing up. I was always really skinny, a lot more skinnier than I am now. Really
You're eating too good now.
real tall and skinny, but yeah, I didn't have any meat on me.
Nice.
Yeah. What was your second part of that question?
The music played in the
All right,
house.
so the music, so my parents, they grew up around the time of the Beatles and the Beach Boys, and I heard a lot of that, and they were also like in their late 20s, early 30s when I was a kid. So also what music was going on in the 80s, say like Michael Jackson or Phil Collins, Madonna. Those are also the music my sisters were listening to. So I had a big influence of 80s music, then 70s music and 60s music, 70s with like Billy Joel and James Taylor, a lot of folk music, rock and roll music. And but as well as diversity with, we grew up in New York, so you had Z100, that played everything that was just top 40. So when hip hop started coming out, it came out in the late 70s, but it didn't really get on the radio till I'd say like Run DMC or the Fat Boys and LL Cool J, and that was in the mid to late 80s. And I was a big avid listener of the radio. So, I had my Walkman, I had tapes, I made mixtapes for myself when I was like 8, 9 years old in the late 80s,
Nice.
so, but I had on those mixtapes what was current, not the Beatles and what was older at the time, but Aerosmith, Bon Jovi, LL Cool J, Run DMC. It was then you had Lisa, had a different mix of whatever's going on in New York, because New York had so much diversity of music at the time, for sure, and I liked a little bit of all of it.
Could you explain to the people the process of making yourself a mixtape?
Yes. All right. So you had a double cassette deck, and you put a tape in there, a blank tape, where you could buy a selection of different blank tapes at the store, Maxwell, TDK, whatever. Usually you want to get something in high definition because that had a better sound than a normal definition, right? You put it in there, and then you might say you're waiting for Walk This Way by Run DMC. Is a good chance it might come on either once an hour or once every 2 hours based off of the show that's playing on the radio. And there's commercials. You got to sit there and wait, and you want to get it from the very beginning, because if you're making your mixtape and sometimes the DJ might talk for like 30 seconds all the way into the song until the song starts, you're like, oh, I missed the whole intro, and you're not going to want that if you want it for your tape. So it could be a process and a skill of like, you get your monthly tape for yourself and you want to have those songs good, like you got it from the store, but it's free, and before then, 7, 8 years old, you don't have money to buy anything at the store. So you're taping songs from the radio. And I still have a lot of those cassettes of a whole tape just off the radio. And you wouldn't know, and then you got to know when they're going to end the song. Because once they start talking, you don't want to have that as a recording either, because you can't delete it. So, or you got to rewind it and then throw another song, right? It's a process, and I'm happy you asked me that question, because I haven't thought about that process in 30 years, which is a cool. Wow. It was cool good times,
Yeah,
for sure.
It is. If you have some commercial at the end, you just have to rewind till that part and then record it, record the next track right there.
Yeah,
it's definitely work. So, do you remember this first song you got on there, or?
I can't say I remember the first song. I was definitely in like 86, 80s. I was into like Whitesnake, Bon Jovi, more hard rock. I would say hard rock was my first love of before hip hop. So you had Bon Jovi, Whitesnake, Poison, Skid Row, Guns N' Roses, and that was more of what I listened to. So I'd say Slippery When Wet was Bon Jovi, and I liked music before then, like Michael Jackson. Thriller was huge, but I was too young to like really have that. I just heard it playing around. But Bon Jovi and I'd say Skid Row, Guns N' Roses were like the first in the late 80s, were the first artists that I really was able to record and actually have like a copy of their cassettes. Nice. As well as Aerosmith and Run DMC, Raising Hell came out like 86, 87. That was one of the first tapes I remember buying also.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So let's move on to the junior high school years. What are those years like? What are you into? What are you not into?
Definitely into girls, puberty, still playing basketball in the neighborhood. In junior high school is when I actually started recording.
There we go.
Yeah, so
Tell us about that first time.
so that was a similar process to recording songs from the radio. So what we did was we had a double cassette and we had a microphone that you put in the aux cord, and you had at that time I was buying tapes, cassette tapes in from music stores, from the malls and stuff. So you would have, say, an instrumental of Redman, right? Tonight's the Night, for an example. I remember that's a song that, so you put in the instrumental of that, you put the cassette over that, so you're taping the instrumental, and then it's also recording your vocals. And I had two other guys that were with me, and they're still with me to this day. We do music, and we were in junior high school together as well as high school, and that's how we recorded. So we were like kind of like a mini group, and that was in my parents' bedroom because that's where the radio was, and where my tapes were and CDs and stuff. So after school, while my parents were still at work, that's where we would record, and I took it very serious. I forced them to rap. They were like, I'm like, look, you guys can rap. We actually, it wasn't bad as far as the lyrics for starters, and we were imitating, not imitating, but we were looking up to. We were in Queens, so we had Onyx, you had Run DMC, you had LL Cool J, A Tribe Called Quest, and those rappers were from Queens. Cool G Rap, Capone and Noriega. This is all around that time, and they were, maybe 5-10 years older than we were.
Was Nas out?
Nas came out in like 93, 94. Yeah. So, and Nas actually, I don't know if this is too personal, but around the corner, directly from where I lived, his baby mother lived, right? And one of my closest friends lived directly next door. And I didn't see, because I already moved out at this time, like it's 95, 96. I moved to Bayside, but he told me several times when Nas would pull up in his Lexus to that, to visit the mom, and so yeah, so we definitely had, and Nas was when Nas came out with Illmatic, that was like, all right, we need to step our rhyme game up because we're rhyming okay, but so my friends, their Redman was like their number one, like, and Wu-Tang was like my number one, Wu-Tang Clan, even though they're not from Queens, but anybody that came out with hip hop, doesn't matter where you're from,
talent's talent.
Yeah, so I loved Wu-Tang, and we started writing, and so we started doing the recording process there. And we met others from the neighborhood who were a few years older than us that are still with us to this day, who would not only record, but they had a 4-track in their house, and they were able to make beats from the computer. So we started then, high school years, recording on the 4-track at their house, and recording original songs, with original beats, and started to get better. And we did that for a few years until after high school, we're like, oh, there's studios. We could actually go to a professional studio. It costs money, but if we go to a studio, it could sound way more professional, and they could edit and mix it and master it. And that's where we got from there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. So you graduated high school?
I did. Good. Barely.
You did.
Yeah,
That's it.
I did not. High school was a strange time. Like, I had my friends from, some friends in school, some friends from the neighborhood, but I was never like a great student. And so I didn't really enjoy school. I wasn't doing well with the grades, but I knew that if I wanted to do some kind of job, I knew graduating is important, or so they say, so I did get my diploma, but it was just like barely. And then after that, I took a few college courses at Nassau Community College, but it was with no major, it was more like liberal arts. So it was just going there to see if you could figure out what you wanted to do. And I didn't figure it out. So I never really, from there on, not there on, but after that, I didn't really have a specific career or anything like that. I wish I took school more seriously, actually.
Yeah. Well, what's going on music-wise throughout the college years, and you trying to figure it out?
I continued to do the music. Actually, when I was in college, there was a fashion show. I was taking fashion for a class, and there was a fashion show for the school, and I was in charge of the music. And I had one of my songs that we recorded at that time as like a song that for some of the models to walk down the runway, which was a pretty cool experience. But at that time, we were just recording in hopes of, at that time you needed to either, you had to make a demo, right? So you had to make a demo of 3 to 5 songs of like your best songs and try to get it to the radio station, or you had to know someone that was in the music industry that can get it to someone at the radio or get it to someone that knows someone at a record label. And you had to also be super nice. You know, New York had in the 90s, late 90s also, even the early 2000s, you had your 50 Cents, you had the Nas's, the Capone and Noriegas, Lost Boys, you know, and these are all in Biggie, Jay-Z, you know, all these rappers, and you know, it's like, so Jadakiss, the Locks, you know, from out here, Yonkers.
Absolutely.
So these are the rappers that you had to compete with if you wanted to get a record deal. You know, you had to either be somewhat way different than them, or most likely sound something like them, where they could say, you know, in the industry, we could maybe sell, you know, what you have. And we tried a few attempts, you know, for record deals. There was a very popular DJ who he produced Brooklyn's Finest for Jay-Z and Biggie. Um, and he passed a year or two ago. His name is escaping me, but I'm sure if I look back, so we had an opportunity to go to the studio and do like a audition for him. And
What was the name of the song he produced? I'll look it up.
it's called Brooklyn's Finest. I know his name is just escaping me. It was Brooklyn's Finest with Biggie and Jay-Z, and it was on Jay-Z's first album, Reasonable Doubt.
Let's see what Google says. That's it. DJ Clark Kent.
DJ Clark Kent. So DJ Clark Kent, he did songs, I believe, with Biggie, Jay-Z. He produced that song, and that's like one of the most, you know, arguably one of the best hip hop songs of all time. Because
Really?
it was with Biggie and Jay-Z
Yeah.
in the song together, and they
Yeah.
recorded it like in the studio together. So we went to audition for him, and I knew who he was, you know, and I knew what, you know, and I was just like 16, 17, and I don't think it turned out too well. He liked my friend, but I think I was just too nervous, and it didn't go so well. But it kind of gave you experience to say, all right, the next time you have this opportunity, you can't blow it, or you can't, you know, you need to be prepared. And so from there, we kept recording, but it was like you couldn't just do music 24/7, you know, because if you're not getting paid from it and you're not getting a record deal, you have to work, you know, you gotta live your life.
You're
you
a
know?
starving artist.
Yeah, so we always continue to do music, but sometimes I'd say that the disappointment of maybe doing a demo for a few months, you know, in the hopes of, all right, we're going to give it to this producer or this record label, and then them saying, maybe being not interested in it. Because back then, you couldn't shop your record to every label like you can now. You don't have the opportunity to reach out to anybody on Instagram, where you can do that now if you have the right connections, or if you know someone that knows them, you could do that. But when you don't have those resources, and you have to either just knock on the radio station's door or
Stand down the sidewalk with it.
And that's how people did get some record deals.
Yeah.
But, you know, so a funny story is, in, I'd say 1999 or 2000, all right, some rappers from my neighborhood who are a few years younger than us, who they weren't rapping for that long, maybe just a few months, right? But they kind of came up under us, me and my guys. They met Rev Run,
Nice.
right, on Union Turnpike, and they met him, And then I believe he went to Applebee's in Fresh Meadows where they waited for him to come out. And when he came out, they rapped for him and he signed them right on the spot. Right.
Wow.
So he signed them on the spot, and I knew all three of them. One of them passed, but the other two are still around and I know them. I'm friends with them.
Nice.
And one of them actually, he did This Is Queens, which is a song that I put out a few months ago. He produced that song.
Nice.
So these guys, they signed a deal. They went on tour with Ashanti, Ja Rule, and at that time it was like, wow, these guys from the neighborhood, they did it. We were a little maybe jealous, a little like from that, but
That's natural.
hats off to them and salute to them, and and they did a lot of good things in the music industry, and
Nice.
so that was a interesting time.
Absolutely. So what's your writing process?
My writing process is I'm very picky with the beats I select. So if I have several producers, I'll listen to all their beats, and I will also take some samples. I'll listen to some music myself, and I'll take samples that I think I could possibly loop, and I'll either try to get a producer to add a breakbeat to it, or I will just loop it and do a verse over that. But the writing process for it is I need to hear the beat and I need to figure out what can I talk about in this song. What are we talking about? I'm not just going to just start writing aimlessly. It's going to be what are we talking about, and I'm going to try to incorporate that writing to that beat. It will be on my own. It will be, when I have some quiet time or when I could have no distractions. It's not in the studio. It's going to be at home, where I could sit down, be relaxed, be in a comfortable, nice setting where you feel in a good headspace to be able to write. And that's when I write, pretty much.
Nice. So the beat playing.
Yeah. So, or I'll hear the beat, a few times, and then I'll start writing to it, but then I might stop the beat and then continue to write without the beat, and then put the beat back on, and then try to practice what I'm writing over the beat to see, all right, this I could say it this way, or let's take this word out, add this word, just to make sure that it's sounding good with the beat. So it could be a little
Nice.
variations of it, of the process.
Nice. Do you use the same engineer?
I have been for over a year now. I used different engineers in the past, but the last year and year and a half that I really locked in, like, and been in the studio like every month, several times a month, it's been the same engineers. Shout out to Space Age Studios in Whitestone.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what's the meaning behind your name, Ben Bacardi?
So there is no real meaning behind the name. I had other names in the past: Sleet, Malignant, Rhapsodist, Smooth B. Those are some names prior to Ben Bacardi. At the time, I was trying to get not rid of, but out of the other name that I had, which is Malignant, it stood for like a venomous lyricist. That's what Malignant Rhapsodist stood for at the time. And I was in my late teens. And at the time, I mentioned that Wu-Tang was a heavy influence, like diehard Wu-Tang fan. And Raekwon released his Only for Built for Cuban Links album, right? And then all the Wu-Tang members took aliases, names. Like Ghostface Killer was Tony Starks, Raekwon was Lex Diamonds, right? They all took alias names. And so I said, you know what? We were recording that night. I was drinking some Bacardi.
My man.
And I said, Ben Bacardi, right? And I was like, it rang a bell. I was like, it stuck. I was like, I like that. Ben is my name. So Ben is my natural name, government name, and that name stuck. And hopefully, if Bacardi ever finds out about it, they'll let me get an endorsement deal or something, because I love Bacardi, but you never know. They might not rock with it.
They might
we'll
not,
see.
but who knows? You never know.
Yeah.
It sounds good though.
Thank you.
And Tribeca Records.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So Eileen Shapiro and Jimmy, they're my PRs, and publicist PRs, and they also are the publicist PR for Tribeca Records. So Tribeca Records is like a boutique record label out of New York City. Soho Johnny is the owner of that label, and they had signed me for a single deal for Life Again, which was my last single previous to the one I have out now, Take Me Down to the Water.
How'd that happen? How'd you get that connection?
So with them, shout out to Sunny Dew, who's also my PR. She has a lot of connections in the hip hop industry, Latin industry, and she is friends with Eileen, who she kind of like connected us together. And a lot of my music, fortunately or unfortunately, it doesn't have your typical hip hop sound, right? I don't look like your typical hip hop artist where either, fortunately nowadays there's so much diversity, but my sound isn't your boom bap, 90s sound, and it's not your trap sound from today. It's not your drill sound. So sometimes trying to pitch my music to Hot 97 or 105.1, they're like, this
It's
doesn't.
not what we're playing,
Right.
just because it's unique. How
Exactly.
would you explain it?
So how do I explain my
Yeah,
music?
describe it, explain it.
I have influence from and as well as the production that I choose has influence from 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even new sounds today. So I say it's like a gumbo pot of all of that. And I don't want to have a specific type of sound, meaning, but I don't want to say that my sound is rock and roll and salsa and hip. It's not that, but it is a hip hop sound because all of my music is hip hop oriented, but the production is different, so you might have This Is Queens, which is a straight hip hop boom 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 type of sound. But then my first single was Yo Gabba, which is taken from the show Yo Gabba Gabba, which has the closing theme song in the background, which is a children's show, right? And then you have Life Again, which has an electronic dance beat to it. And, they did well. This Is Queens has 50,000 streams on Spotify, and Yo Gabba has 40,000 streams, and Life Again is up for an award at the Josie Awards coming in November.
Yeah, I have that on my list here.
Yeah, but it's just the sound is different, and so fortunately with Spotify, with so much lanes of streaming and, kids today, even they're listening to stuff on TikTok and YouTube that's from the 50s and 60s, and like, oh, check out this new song.
Yep.
I'm like, I heard that song when I was in my mom's stomach, so music is timeless. If it's good music, it's good music. And I don't want to fall into the category of like, your song is not like New York 2025 hip hop. We're not going to put that on the radio station. All right, I'll put it on YouTube. I'll put it on Spotify, and I'll find my own fan base for that. And now kids in Germany and Brazil and, all across the world, they're listening to my music because of Spotify, because of YouTube, where back in the days, you can only listen to what was on the radio station. And that's not the case anymore. Radio doesn't dictate what's hot and what's not.
So how are you reaching all of these people? Is it the PR team you have?
Yeah. So the PR team helps with, I'd say, digital magazines and podcasts like this definitely help. And thank you for having me.
My
just
pleasure.
you could have an audience that has nothing to do with hip hop or has nothing to do with my type of music, but they might have never heard of me, but now watching this show, they might, but also as an artist today, you have to really, really promote yourself. You have to be on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You have to put out content regularly, and not just your music. You have to put out content that people will get interested in who you are, which is difficult because before it was just, how good is your song? What does your song sound like? What do you look like? And if we can market you and your music is good, people will buy it. But now it's more of like, how many views do you have? How many followers do you have? What could make people listen to what you're showing in 3 seconds? It's difficult to navigate, but it's challenging, which is also fun.
Yeah, it is fun. You just got to go with the times.
Yeah.
So tell us about the Josie Music Awards.
So the Josie
nominated for Song of the Year, Life Again.
For hip hop, yes. Thank you. Josie Music Awards is something that I wasn't even aware of so much.
Me either.
But the PR, Jimmy and Eileen, who work with me,
Nice.
they also they supposedly the Josie Awards has been around since 2015, and it's one of the biggest independent music awards shows.
Wow, that's dope.
Like, period. And it's taking place in Nashville, Tennessee, November 2nd of this year. And you know, people who are in the independent music circuit, they know about it, because when I speak to some other musicians, they're like, oh, you know, that's good, you know, that you're nominated for that award.
Nice.
So supposedly there was like 50 to 70,000 submissions for like the category for hip hop, and out of 4, you know, selections, I was chosen.
My man, that's amazing.
Thank you. You know, so whether I win or lose, I'm just happy to be in the
nominated
category.
is great.
So I plan to go down there, you know, make a weekend out of it, meet some people, network, and who knows, you know, but I'm happy to be a part of it.
You been there before?
No, I've never been
Me
there
either.
before.
It's known as a music city.
Yeah, I heard there's a lot of bands, a lot of big night scene.
Yeah, I always hear bands and live music and stuff like that, country. I never hear much about hip hop.
Yeah, so you mentioned country. I do know that Nashville is known for like a lot of country labels. You know, so hey, I'll do a country song too.
You should before you go.
You know,
you may perform out there.
Yeah.
Prescription to Rap. What's this?
So it is a working title. We were gonna put that out because there was I've recorded over 90 to 100 songs in the last year and a half, and only maybe 5 to 10 has been released. So I was gonna put that out, and I still plan to put that out, but in the beginning and the middle of September, I'm putting out an album called 1986. Now, 1986 is gonna be a lot of the songs that I produced, where they're not from some of the other producers that I have, but they're a lot of 80s inspired music, where you have some 80s samples, you have some 90s samples, and I'm going to make it a series where every few months I'll have 1986 that comes out in the middle of September, and then maybe 2 or 3 months later, 1987, 88, 89, and that's it. And in those albums, 7 to 10 songs is going to be 80s and 90s inspired music, with 80s and 90s sound. So
nice.
And it's something that really, as far as I know, hasn't really been done too often. So I'm trying to just do things that are different, and that could be enjoyable to different people.
The samples, you get them cleared, or you just risking
it? If you have some samples that are more obscure, that aren't like, say, the Beatles or Madonna, you know, there's a good chance that it could go under the radar. But at the same time, say it goes viral, that could be a good problem, though.
It could.
Good or bad publicity, they always say could be good publicity. So if something goes viral and something wasn't cleared, and an artist from 35 years ago wants to get paid, we could say, hey, let's go on tour. Let's perform this song, you know, and we can get paid, both of us. Or I could take the song down and nobody's gonna hear from you ever again, you know. Or you know, money's tight. Or you could pay them. You know, there's different options. So I did. There was a song called Radio that I did put out a few months ago, and it was a sample from Queen. And I went the right way to try to get permission, and
it's pricey.
They weren't having it. They you know, as a process, you have to send them the lyrics, you have to send them the music, and they said no. But I am proud and I'm happy to say that there's a single that I have out with a video that came out a few months ago called Wow. I'm on a boat in the video in the Hamptons, and that whole song was an instrumental version of a song from Beck, who is a huge international star from the States, but he's a big star from the 90s and 2000s, sold tens of millions of records.
Yeah, I remember him.
And he, you know, graciously let me use that sample.
Really?
Yeah, permission, you know, everything, you know, through the management. And I wish the song did better. It's a really good feel-good summary type of song. It hasn't been released on any album yet of mine. So when I do drop an official album with original music, you know, not like this 1986 one that I'm throwing out there, that song is definitely going to be on there. And, you know, we'll see what happens with it.
Very nice. Let's talk about the Mike Wagner show.
Yeah, I was on a show a few months ago. It was interesting. You
What,
you know,
what do you mean
no, it was
interesting?
different. It was a good show. Nothing too memorable about it. It was again set up through Eileen and Jimmy. They have a lot of their artists on his show. But yeah, it was a good show. It's on YouTube. You could check it out.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, it's different than this. Different questions.
Okay, cool, cool. The Hype magazine. How'd you get plugged in with that? PR also?
Yeah, a lot of
You
stuff
know,
is
this
PR.
PR team sounds amazing. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
a lot of PR. You could be your own PR. Um, but it helps if these PR if they have relationships with a lot of these people, because a lot of the to be put into magazines and sometimes podcasts, it could be costly, to that you would have to pay out of your pocket. Unfortunately, that's how it is. So with these connections that they have, it enables me to sometimes be on some of these places that maybe I couldn't be if I wasn't with them.
Absolutely. You're an owner of a home inspection business?
Yeah.
Let's get into how'd that even come to mind to even do this?
So, graduating high school, not really getting a college degree, I had a lot of different jobs: Boston Market, ADT, alarm systems, a lot. I had like a lot of job, movie theater, a lot of stuff that wasn't really sustainable for the long run. For if you wanted to have a family and you wanted to do better for yourself. So I had done inspections, taking photos of homes on behalf of mortgage companies. I had done it when I was in my early 20s, but it wasn't enough to really do full time. But I liked it. You're on your own, you're in your car driving around to different neighborhoods. And I said to myself, if I ever get the opportunity to really do it like full time, I'm going to take advantage of it. And I'd say in 2010 or 2011, I had that opportunity, and I still had another full-time job. I was newly married, and I couldn't just quit the other job because I'm like, look, if this doesn't work out, then what? So I kept both jobs for like 6 months, and I did pretty good with that work. It was just on my own, but after a few months, the company folded. I got work from another company, and they asked me, they're like, can you cover Brooklyn and Queens? I was living in Queens at the time, and Long Island. They asked me, "Can I cover all these three areas?" I'm like, "I can't cover it, but I have some help that could help me." And so from there, I hired a few people to help me with it, and that was just from one company. And then from there, I realized, oh, I didn't really know much about the business. I found out, well, there's other companies that do this type of work, and I got work from other companies. Then we expanded to all of New York City, all of Long Island. We were even in Westchester at one point, other states, and that's how it went. It was a lot of trial and error, and I'm still learning a lot from it, but it's good. It has its good parts and bad parts to it.
What do you need to do that? Do you need a license or anything?
No, so it's not the kind of inspections where, say you buy a new house, you need an inspector to come in and check out the whole house and make sure it's up to whatever
Code,
file,
yeah.
code. These are mostly the kind of inspections where you're either inspecting a commercial building to make sure that everything is good in the building. We also do merchant side inspections to verify the merchant really exists, or
Mm,
primarily what we do is residential, where we're inspecting a lot of homes that are in pre-foreclosure. So if you don't pay your mortgage for maybe 3 or 4 months and the bank can't get in touch with you, some of these banks are in other states, other countries, they'll hire a company like mine to take photos just to verify, is the house there?
mhm.
Does people live there? What's the condition? And unfortunately, because of the economy, whether it's good or bad, a lot of families are in this situation all across the country. And so this work is in every part of the country, but we're
Yeah,
primarily in New York.
nice. Let's move on to your top 5 favorite artists.
My top five favorite artists, if you see my shirt, I got two of them on there, is Jay-Z and Notorious B.I.G., Nas, Billy Joel, and the Wu-Tang Clan.
Nice. Very nice. What do you think is the next move to take your music to the next level?
I think the next step to take my music to the next level I would love to get a strong fan base that will really just enjoy whatever type of music I put out. And if I want to be on a tour or to be at a show or put out an album, they will want to purchase it, and I want to get there. I don't really necessarily need to be on a specific record label. I'd rather be independent, but I want to build up a fan base where they want to hear Ben Bacardi's music. They want to be invested in what I'm doing. And if I could do that, that would be taking it to the next level.
Absolutely. What religion do you practice when you were a kid?
We practiced, my parents were Jewish, and then they converted to be Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's the religion I was raised, and I'm still practicing.
Yeah. What's your relationship with God?
My relationship with God, I like to say that I have a personal relationship with him. I feel like I know what he wants and what he doesn't want. And every day I'm trying to do as much as I can to do what he wants to make him happy, but it's like a fight, so it could be like a normal relationship with a friend. Some days you're cool with him, some days you're not. But after that, if they're your close friend or your family, you're gonna make up with them and you're gonna try to do what you can and keep that relationship going.
Very nice. Who's the first person you think of when you think of success?
I'd say maybe my dad. My dad and my mom, they're older now. They've been married 55 years. They've been together since 14, 15 years old, dating.
Wow.
Yeah. They raised me and my two older sisters, and we're all very close as a family, and family was really important to them. We had dinner every night at 6 p.m.
Nice.
Didn't matter if I was outside, my dad's whistling, it's dinner time, he kept the family intact, and there's, they have grandkids. I have two kids. They're very involved, him as well, with my family, and, it'll be sad when they're getting older. So I want to try to be as close to them as possible at this time.
Very nice. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Probably a baseball player. As a young kid, I loved baseball, and then it became basketball. But never really wanted to be like a fireman or a policeman. That wasn't in it.
What are 3 things you need to be happy?
3 things I need to be happy. 1, a peace of mind, your own peace of mind, to be at peace with yourself, and that's the start to being happy. But with that, I feel like I need my family to be right. Like, whether it's my kids or my wife or my sisters and my parents, I need my family around me and to be in a good space with my family. And the 3rd thing to achieve that, I think you need to be doing something in your life that fulfills you. Like, for me at this time, it's my music that's making me extremely happy. And for years I wasn't into it. I was off and on. And the last year and a half I've been into it, and it gives you more of a purpose, and it makes you happy. So those 3 things.
I like it. What's the most exciting thing you ever did?
The most exciting thing I ever did, so my wife is from Venezuela, and we met through a mutual friend, one of her friends, and we dated or talked a long time before we could even be together. The country's relationships are very, even now, even like, you can't just visit, and you can't come back here. You can't. So we talked for a while, and then it got to the point where I was like, I think I really like this person. Even though it's a long distance relationship, I was in my late 20s, and I was like, we had a lot of common interests and mutual, attraction. And so I took a trip down there and there's not a lot of Americans there, and especially like a 6'2" big white guy, you know, and my parents, and they were like, look, you know, you check the TSA, you know, website, and they're saying be careful when you go to Venezuela, because like you know, if something happens to you down there, I don't even know if the American embassy could help you. But I didn't really care, you know, so I was like, she's saying it's safe, don't worry about it. And I went down there, so, and it worked out. So, and I went there several other times before she was even able to come up here. So that was definitely, maybe the initial trip was super, it was exciting.
Nice. Very nice. As you get older, what has become more important and less important?
More important has become your family and the time that you spend, you know, the time that you spend in with, and your friends, you know, moments of being with them. It doesn't, you know, in the past, what's less important is having the latest sneakers, or you know, going on lavish trips or material things. That's less important, because those things come and go, but your family and friends, they don't, you know, or, and they might go actually, you know, after a certain amount of time. So being with them and being with your family and those moments that you could spend with them is way more important to me than it was when I was growing up.
Nice. What would be the best piece of advice you give your younger self?
Um, the best advice I can give my younger self is to not make rash decisions. You know, think things out very, very well before you make an important decision. You know, they say in a day we can make like 3 million decisions, you know, that your brain does, whether it's minor or major, you know. But major decisions in your life, relationships, jobs, just, you know, also, if you know, your temper, things that could really change your life in a matter of seconds, take your time and think about those things before you do them, because they could change your life. That's what I would tell my younger self.
Nice. Anxiety and depression. You have anything to say about this?
Yeah, I've dealt with anxiety and depression throughout my late teens, throughout my adult life. um the most important thing to help with that is, one, talking to someone can definitely help, a professional, someone that's non-biased, someone that really doesn't have an agenda with you. You know, sometimes it's good to talk to family and friends, but they sometimes are too invested in you, and they, you know, they're not mental health professionals. So
Of course.
a mental health professional can definitely help you, sometimes in not even giving you advice, but just allowing you to talk and get a lot of things off your chest, could be therapeutic and help you, you know, and just to get things out that are stuck in. As well as sometimes you might have to take some medicine, whether it's a glass of wine, or
My
you know,
man.
whatever it is, to take the edge off, you know, that could be your mental health helping.
So, therapist. You think everybody should
Yeah, as
give a
well as
therapist a try?
stuff that makes you happy. Like, this music is my therapy, you know, like I'm going to the studio on Wednesday and I'm looking forward to that. You know, whether it
Nice.
was if it was 2 weeks from now, I'll be thinking about it from now to the next 2 weeks. And that, when you have a rough day, you're gonna be like, you know what? Next week I'm gonna be in the studio. I'm not gonna be thinking about nothing but the music that makes me happy, and that gets you by. You know, and in the past, or in the other, with other people, it could be different things. Whatever it is for that person, find it and work with that. You know, and try to keep that to make you happy.
I like it. If you could have any question answered, and it could be the day and time you're gonna die, any question you want, what would you ask?
Um, I like to know. I believe that like we're living in a time that's very um a scary time. I believe like the time that we live in is like prophetic. You know, the Bible talks about the last days and things like that, and I believe we're living in that time, right? But that could go on for who knows how long, you know, and after that comes to an end, the Bible talks about there's a time after that, you know, and I believe it's on the earth, you know, like how man was originated to be on the earth. And supposedly from the Bible, not everyone's going to make it there. And I would like to make it there with my family. If I could find out if I'll be there with my family, and I could have that answered, or if I'm not going to be, if there's something,
Yeah.
if I could change
Either way.
something to make sure I could be there, that's something maybe I'd like to know.
Nice. If you had one law everyone on earth had to follow, what would it be?
Wear deodorant.
I like that. Do you have any regrets?
I don't have any regrets. I feel like a lot of things you do in your life, whether you look back on it and you might think like that was a huge mistake. There's things I'm going through now that just in the last few months that are maybe financial decisions you made wrong, put you in different places. I feel like they're all learning experiences that can help you grow, and if it's really even bad, can make you stronger. So, and if you didn't go through those things, you might have not learned, and you might not be as strong as you are today. So, no, I don't have any regret.
Absolutely. Outside of the music, outside of even your family, what are your overall life goals?
My overall life goals would be to retire in a few years, where I could enjoy life, enjoy my family, enjoy my kids, spend as much time with them without financial strains. I would love to do my music full time, where it'll not to be under a record label where they dictate what you have to do, but independently, where if I want to go on a show in Australia, I could go do it and make enough money there to last the whole year, sell merch, where you could buy my merch or buy my music and make music when I want and dictate how I want to live my life through doing music. If I could do that, and that would make me happy.
Nice. We're nearing the end of the podcast. If you could please let the people know where they could find you, anything you have coming up you want them to tune into, and any last words.
Sure. So Take Me Down to the Water is my latest single. Video is out on YouTube. The song is streaming everywhere: Spotify, Tidal, Amazon, as well as the B-side is Play This at My Funeral, featuring Pelly, H, and Petty. Go stream that, as well as a bunch of other songs that are everywhere to be found, which is Wow, This Is Queens, Yo Gabba, a host of others. Now, 1986, look out for that. That album will be coming out the top or middle of September, and it's going to be my debut album. Whether it's an EP or LP is undecided, but that's going to come out. And more things to store, more podcasts, more songs coming out, more recordings, and I appreciate you all for listening and tuning in.
Thank you very much for your time and the conversation.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody that watched. Peace and love.